Welcome to this interesting and simple topic, nutrition in animals. So of all, this should be the simplest. We have talked about nutrition in plants, we have talked about saprophytic nutrition. So this one should be the simplest. Why? Because it's about us. We're going to learn how nutrition occurs in our bodies. So we have all the evidence, all the leakage on our bodies. Okay, so this should be simple. So far, we have looked at introduction to nutrition, we have looked at saprophytic nutrition, we have looked at plant nutrition. So now we're looking at the easiest of all these, and that is animal nutrition. It is the easiest because it's about us. Most of the things we're going to discuss are things that we already know, but of course, we're going to know the terminologies and just to understand a few chemical processes that occur here and there. So animal nutrition, animals carry out what is called hydrochloric nutrition, which I introduced, of course, when we were discussing introduction to nutrition. So in animals, this hydrochloric nutrition occurs in a special tube called the alimentary canal. It is made of 5 stages, which are ingestion, digestion, absorption, assimilation, and egestion. All these we discussed, but just to help you remember, let's go through what each is. So what is ingestion? Ingestion is just the intake of food into the mouth. You put food in your mouth, that is ingestion. Next is digestion, which is just the breaking down of food, such as when you are chewing, that is part of digestion. So there are 2 types of digestion. There's what is called physical digestion and chemical digestion. So physical digestion is just a breakdown of large pieces of food into smaller ones. Okay, so when you put a lump of shima in your mouth, that's a large piece of food, so it has to be broken down. So breaking down that using teeth is of course physical digestion. So in humans, the process is carried out by teeth in the mouth. Okay, so the purpose of physical digestion is to increase the surface area of the food for more efficient enzyme activity and make food easy to swallow. So that lump, you know that you can't swallow it. Okay, so it has to be broken down a bit, or even it has to be broken down, then it will be easy for it to be swallowed. Second, when you break it down, it will be into smaller pieces. Enzymes will find it easier to work on such, okay, as compared to working on one lump of food. But if you break them, you break it into smaller pieces, then there'll be a lot of substrate. The substrate is then the food, of course. In short, the substrate concentration will be high, therefore enzyme activity will be high also. Okay, but if it's just one lump, then the number of substrate is smaller, which is just 1 in this case. Okay, so it has to be broken down into smaller pieces so as to increase the surface area. That's what we call when something is big and you break it down so that it is into smaller pieces, we say the surface area has been increased because more of it can be worked on in a given time. So the whole purpose of physical digestion is to increase the surface area of the food for more efficient enzyme activities and also to make food easy to swallow. Then chemical digestion is the breakdown of large molecules, not pieces but molecules of food into smaller ones by enzymes. By molecules, we're talking about things like glucose, things like proteins. Those are molecules. So those ones are broken down into smaller ones. For example, proteins can be broken down into amino acids, glucose into its smaller units. So that's what happens. Fats and lipids can be broken down into fatty acids and glycerol. So that's what chemical digestion is all about, to break down large molecules of food such as proteins into smaller ones by enzymes. That's the purpose of chemical digestion. So why should food be broken down into its smaller component? So as to make absorption of food more efficient. So the body can absorb amino acids or peptides, fatty acids and glycerol, fructose, sucrose, but it can't absorb or it's not easy to absorb large molecules such as proteins. Next stage is absorption, which is just the uptake of soluble food into the bloodstream. Okay, so food that is soluble is taken into the bloodstream. That's absorption. Then assimilation is just the usage and incorporation of absorbed food in living cells. So once food has been taken into the bloodstream, it's part of the blood, it has to be taken by the cells and be used by the cells. That is assimilation. The last one is digestion, which is just the removal of undigested food from the body through the anus. So when you eat, not all the food is useful. Not all the food is going to go into your body. Part of it is not useful. It has to be excreted. It has to be removed from your body. That is digestion. So this is a diagram that shows the various parts of the alimentary canal. So the one starting from the start here where ingestion occurs, we have the mouth. Inside of the mouth there is a tongue, and of course there are these glands here which are called salivary glands, which are essential because they excrete saliva, which is very important when it comes to digestion in the mouth. Okay, so after that we have got this tube here which is called the esophagus. I hope you can see, but if you can't see the words, it's okay, just follow me. So esophagus is the tube that connects your mouth to your stomach. The stomach is here. Okay, then this one is the liver with a very important role in digestion, which we are going to study. Okay, other than that, we have got the gallbladder here, which helps also in digestion. We have got what is called the bile duct here, and we have got the pancreas here, and the spleen. Also, we have intestines, which are in two types. There's small intestines, which are these inside here. Then outside here, they are called large intestines. So for the small intestines, there are three types. They are what are called duodenum, then there are what are called jejunum, and there is ileum. So all these three are going to see what role or what happens in these three types of intestines. Okay, and the last part, of course, where undigested food is excreted, or where digestion occurs, is the anus. So we're going to visit each part of the alimentary canal, analyzing what goes on there during the process of digestion. Okay, so this journey is going to be focused on three food substances, that is carbohydrates, lipids, and proteins. How are they broken? Imagine you get some boiled eggs, you put them on a bun, then you eat that. The bun has carbohydrates, the egg has lipids and proteins. So how are they going to be broken? So digestion of food substances occurs in the mouth, stomach, duodenum, and jejunum. Duodenum and jejunum are small intestines. Okay, there are three types of small intestines: duodenum, jejunum, and ileum. So only two participate in the digestion process. Okay, so we start with the mouth. What happens during the mouth? What happens in the mouth? By the way, we're going to start with the mouth. Then from the mouth, we're going to start how food moves from the mouth to the stomach. Then after that, we're going to start the stomach. Then we'll continue just like that, just following the way the alimentary canal is. So the first process is chewing, which is also called mastication. So this is basically the breakdown of large pieces of food into smaller ones by teeth. So why should food be broken down into smaller ones? First, chewing is an example of physical digestion. What's the importance of physical digestion? To increase the surface area. So that's the importance of chewing. But there's another importance. Okay, imagine you get a lump of enzyme, you put it in your mouth, then without chewing, you swallow it. It's going to be difficult. Okay, so the other importance of chewing is it makes swallowing easy. So in summary, Its importance is that it increases the surface area of the food for more efficient enzyme activity and makes food easy to swallow. So the second stage after chewing, actually, it's not after, it's when you are chewing. The other process that happens is secretion of saliva. So saliva is secreted, okay? So this saliva comes from special glands called salivary glands. What do these salivary glands do? So saliva is a mixture of water, mucus, the enzyme called salivary amylase, and lysozyme. So there are four components of saliva. There's water, there's mucus, and there are two enzymes. The first one is salivary amylase, the other one is lysozyme. So the question is, what do each do? So one thing we should know about saliva is, about the mouth is its pH is like alkaline. So remember when we were talking about enzymes, we talked about the pH scale, which starts from 0 to 14, with 7 being the neutral point or the middle point. So numbers above 7 are said to be alkaline. Numbers less than 7 are said to be acidic, meaning that any solution whose pH is less than 7 tastes like an acid, while that one which is above 7 tastes like the opposite of an acid, which is called an alkaline. So now we're going to take a look at the functions of the components of saliva. Okay, so we're going to start with water. The hot helps in cooling food that is too hot and warming up food that is too cold, so that its temperature is favorable for enzyme action. So when we talked about enzymes, we talked about optimum temperature. So most enzymes in the body, their optimum temperature is 35, somewhere there. So that's why if your temperature is around 38, 39, then your enzymes might be denatured. That's the reason when you go to hospital, they are going to measure your temperature. They want to see if your temperature is within the optimum temperature for enzyme activity. So now when you put food in your mouth, those enzymes that are supposed to participate in chemical digestion, they need a right temperature, the optimum temperature. So if the food you have put in is too hot, then they're not going to work on it because they're going to be denatured. So water in the saliva will try to cool down the food. Okay, then also when your food is too cold, remember at lower temperatures enzymes activity is not that much. So when the food is too cold, the water has a bit of temperature which is equal to the optimum temperature. So when the water mixes with the food, then enzymes are going to be able to work on the food, since the food is now going to be surrounded by a substance that has an optimum temperature. Away from the optimum temperature, there is also another function of water, and that is it softens food for its chewing. Imagine you put bread in your mouth, then there's no saliva, then you start chewing. It's just so difficult, but the saliva makes sure that the food is soft so that your chewing can be easy. Next, look at mucus. So the function of the mucus is just to lubricate the food for easier swallowing. Okay, so when mucus is mixed with the food, then you can easily swallow the food because the food is going to be able to move along the alimentary canal smoothly. Then the enzyme lysozyme, this one, if your food has some bacteria or some germs, this one would destroy some of the germs. So its function is to destroy some bacteria or germs or toxic substances. Then I also mentioned that the pH of the mouth is slightly alkaline. Why? Because the enzyme salivary amylase, which is part of the saliva, works best at alkaline pH, meaning that its optimum pH is alkaline. Therefore, that alkaline pH in the mouth makes it easy to do its job. So now, salivary amylase starts the digestion of cooked starch to produce maltose. Okay, remember we're talking about carbohydrates, lipids, and proteins. Starch is a carbohydrate. So its job is just to break down the starch to produce a sugar called maltose. So when you're eating bread which has starch, as you are chewing the bread, you start tasting some sweet. That sweet is maltose. However, only some However, only small amounts of starch are converted to maltose in the mouth because food stays for a short time in the mouth. Okay, so as you are chewing, you won't chew for a long time, so you're going to swallow. So not all starch is converted to maltose, but for some, actually it's advisable to take some time when you're chewing, especially bread, so that all the starch or most of the starch can be converted to maltose. If, for example, you try to experiment, you put bread in your mouth, then you start chewing, you are going to realize that at some point, as you keep on chewing, the bread is going to become sweeter. That is maltose that you have. It means starch has been converted to maltose. So the point here is not all the maltose, not all the starch is converted to maltose because we don't chew for a long time. Then when you swallow, let me read the new sentence. Amylase does not work in the stomach because the pH is acidic. So when you are chewing, the food mixes with the enzyme amylase because of the saliva. So where the saliva, there is amylase. Okay, so we have discussed that not all the starch is converted to maltose. So when you swallow, does it mean that the conversion will continue? So when the food reaches the stomach, the amylase won't work. Why? Because in the stomach it's acidic, it's not alkaline. Okay, so digestion ends in the mouth for amylase converting starch to maltose. So now after that, after what we have discussed, the next stage is mixing food with saliva and formation of something called a bolus. So the top of the mouth is called a palate. So what happens is, while food is being chewed, the tongue mixes it with saliva. The tongue works with the palate, which is of course top of the mouth, to roll the chewed food up into a round semi-solid called a bolus. Okay, so once you have a bolus, this is when you can swallow. So this goes to the next stage. We're done with the mouth. We go into what happens between the mouth and the stomach. So when you swallow, the next stage that follows is facilitated by a process called peristalsis. So swallowing is the passage of food or liquids from the mouth to the stomach through the esophagus. The food bolus moves by a process known as peristalsis. Peristalsis is defined as the alternate contraction and relaxation of circular and longitudinal muscle in a wave-like manner in order to move food along the alimentary canal. So I know this might not be something that you can easily understand, but let's try to break it. So alternate, it means some sort of exchanging. This happens, then this happens. This happens, then it stops, the other thing happens. So there are two processes, contraction and relaxation. Then there are two types of muscles, circular muscles and longitudinal muscles. So these circular muscles and longitudinal muscles contract and relax to move food in a wave-like manner, like the way the snake moves. So that's how food is moved from the mouth to the stomach. So for you to understand this, let's take a look at the picture of the esophagus. So this is a model of the esophagus. So when this is the bolus here, okay. So the esophagus is made of two muscles, like I said. The inner ones here, these ones are called circular muscles. Then the outer ones here are longitudinal muscles. So circular muscles, they are circles, they are like rings, they move like this, then they make a circle just like that. Then longitudinal, they move like top, bottom, just like that. So what happens is, behind the food, the circular muscles contract. So let me do some animation. So by contracting, to contract is to become smaller, to squeeze yourself. So when they contract, what happens is they push the food inside. Okay, and when this is happening, the longitudinal muscles are going to relax. Okay, they're just going to be relaxed. That is, they're going to be in their normal state? Well, the circular muscles are contracting. So when they are contracting, they are going to push the food. So since they are contracting, the food is going to be pushed, because they are contracting here, so this food is going to be pushed. So as this is happening, in front of the food here, the opposite is happening. The circular muscles are going to relax, while the longitudinal muscles are going to contract. So these longitudinal muscles are going to contract. They are going to become smaller. They are going to shorten. Okay, so they are going to be like this. So they are going to be pulling like this because they want to shorten. So they are going to be pulling like that. In the process, the food will be pushed forward. Okay, so behind the food, the circular muscles contract, while the longitudinal muscles relax. Well, in front of the food, the circular muscles relax, the longitudinal muscles contract. So this is how peristalsis occurs. Now go to digestion in the stomach. So this is where we're going to end. So the following events take place in the stomach. First is the secretion of gastric juice. So there's a juice that is secreted in the stomach called gastric juice. So gastric juice is a mixture of pepsin, renin, hydrochloric acid, and mucus. In the mouth, we have saliva. In the stomach, we have gastric juice. Okay? So what do each of these do? So we're going to start with pepsin. Pepsin breaks down proteins to form peptides. Okay? Peptides are smaller proteins, like just a few amino acids put together. Okay, remember the building blocks of proteins are amino acids. So just a few amino acids, you have the peptide. So pepsin breaks down proteins to form peptides. Then renin coagulates milk by converting the soluble protein caseinogen into an insoluble protein called casein. So what is to coagulate? When we did the enzymes, we talked about coagulate. To coagulate is to make milk harder. Okay, so what renin does is it makes milk harder by changing caseinogen to casein. So this caseinogen is soluble, like it can dissolve. Okay, so when your food has water, this caseinogen can be dissolved and it can go somewhere else before it has been digested. So it has to be made harder so that it does not dissolve, so that digestion can occur on it. So the importance of this is that what I've just said, it delays the passage of milk to the duodenum, giving chance for pepsin to digest milk protein. So this occurs only when you have eaten something that has milk. Okay. So the renin makes sure that milk does not go to the small intestines till the protein in the milk is digested. Remember, milk has proteins and it reducing sugars, but here we're concentrating on proteins. So now there is an interesting fact. Both pepsin and renin are secreted in inactive forms called pepsinogen and prorenin, respectively. So what they're trying to say is, from the gastric juice here, pepsin is not pepsin, it's called pepsinogen, and renin is not renin, it's prorenin. So how do they turn? And these two, that is pepsinogen and prorenin, before they become pepsin and renin, they cannot do anything. They are not active. They cannot catalyze any reaction. So how are they converted to pepsin and renin? So we go to hydrochloric acid. What does it do? So this one is the one that activates pepsinogen and prorenin into active enzymes. Okay, so this is the one that actually makes pepsinogen to become pepsin and prorenin to become renin, so that now they can do their job. Their job, remember, pepsin is to break down proteins to peptides, and renin is to coagulate milk. The other function of the hydrochloric acid is it sets an acidic pH which is optimum. So these enzymes, pepsin works in an acidic environment, that is its optimum pH. And the third function is it also kills some bacteria, just like lysozyme does in the mouth. Then the other one, which is the last one, it hydrolyzes sucrose to glucose and fructose. Remember, sucrose is made of glucose and fructose. So this one breaks down sucrose to make or to form glucose and fructose. Next, we go to the mucus. So the other a substance that is secreted or that is part of the gastric juice is mucus. So mucus protects the lining of the stomach against the acid and pepsin. So it covers the stomach so that the acid does not hit the stomach. When you have, are they called not gases? What are they called? I've forgotten the name of some illness where you feel like some pains in the stomach. It's because of the gastric juice that makes it to the hole. It hits the hole and it damages the hole. So the whole point of the mucus is to protect the lining of the stomach against the acid and pepsin. Then after that, the next process is called churning. So this is the mixing of food by rhythmic contraction of the muscles in the hole of the stomach to form a paste called chyme. Okay, just like in the mouth, a bolus is formed. In the stomach, it's a chyme that is formed. Then there is a third process, which is the last one, which is the temporal storage of food. So liquids, this is just information, of course. Liquids can stay in the stomach for up to 30 minutes. Carbohydrates are kept for about 1 hour. Proteins and lipids stay up to 2 hours. So some of them can be there in the stomach when, of course, you feel like you have a full stomach, before they can proceed to the duodenum and the jejunum. So we end here. This has been the longest video, or one of the longest videos. It has taken 27 minutes. I hope you were able to follow through, and I'm sure you're tough to get the most of what was being delivered. Happy solving.